Good.
Hey, welcome to Putting the Real in Real Estate with Danielle and Ruth. We're talking today about what we've learned. So one of the most exciting things about being a realtor is the opportunity to constantly be learning something new. And we happen to love doing that. So we spend a lot of time in classes, continuing education, searching out new ways to serve our clients better. And we're always learning something great. So we took a class recently about short sales and foreclosures and learned a ton. I mean, I felt it was like, that scene where the Grinch's heart gets bigger. My brain did that day.
Yeah.
So it was jammed into our heads, but it was fascinating and we learned a lot and we want to share a few things with you. So looking at foreclosures from both sides, either as a homeowner who's looking at this possible danger in their future, or a home buyer who might look at this as an opportunity. So we're going to talk about each of those. Danielle?
So first of all, as Ruth said, we were, as just for knowledge based, we're working on our SFR. It's called Short Sale and Financing Resource, because that's what we want to do. I'm sorry, not financing, foreclosure resource, because that's what we just want to have, that knowledge. We are not saying this is the beginning of any type of end or crash or anything like that. And we're going to kind of explain that to you, where we are right now. Of course, we cannot predict, we never can predict what's going to happen in 2 months, 6 months, a year and a half from now. But as of right now, these are the statistics that we have. And this is why we are hopeful for the future of the housing market right now. So first of all, one of the biggest differences between now, obviously there are people hurting. There are people who might be feeling like they're falling behind or could be falling behind soon, or are very just worried about what the future holds. So one of the first things that is very important for us to understand is that we now have something called forbearance. This is an option with your lender. This is in cooperation. They are cooperating with people. They don't want to put people out.
And this is part of the COVID bill. It's part of the national, the rules were changed, basically.
Correct. And that was not something that was around in 2008 and 2009, where we saw a record amount of sales because in foreclosures or short sales. And another reason we're not going to see anywhere near as bad as, at least right now, we are at about 10 to 25% of the amount of distressed sales as we were last year in 2008 and 2009. We had almost 900 to 1 million houses that were distressed sales, and that's what we call short sales or foreclosure sales. At least back then, were distressed sales, and now we're in the 100 to 200,000 range of people who might be falling behind or who are possible distressed sellers. But part of that goes into the fact that we have been seeing a great growth in the industry. So right now, 75% of homeowners have on average $20,000 worth of equity in their house, which means that their house, if it were sold today, is $20,000 more than what they owe to the bank. So even if you've found yourself struggling, or you think you're going to be struggling soon, it is not, there's a very good chance that you can walk out of this, without needing to go through the longer process of a short sale or foreclosure. So that's some kind of positive ways to look at it. But there are ways, again, to have a realtor or come in. There's options if you want to try to stay in your house. Just because you're distressed right now does not mean that you have to move or that you're going to get kicked out. Again, the forbearance, depending on your income, there's the opportunity to refinance. So that would be something that you would either, again, talk to your lender, or you can talk to one of our lenders if we're not, if you didn't buy through our lenders. But those are options. But then there's also options if you can't stay, or if you want to go, like, this is just too much for me, and you want to just step away for right now. There are options. there is a foreclosure. You can bring some cash to the sale. If it's not something that, if you sell it and you owe more, you can have the option of just writing a check if you have the ability to, obviously.
And the worst thing you can do is nothing.
Yes, and that was another thing. Thank you, Ruth. That was a big issue that we faced in 2008. Some people, realtors, lenders, whatever, attorneys, were telling people, stop making payments. You won't get a foreclosure. They won't allow you to short sale. The banks won't allow you to short sale unless you've missed payments, and that is not the case. The worst thing to do is kind of be a deer in headlights. I understand it's a very painful decision-making process of what you need to do or what you can do, but overall, it's best to get ahead of it. So and
the banks are much better prepared than they were. Nobody knew what the heck they were doing in those days, and so they were overwhelmed. There was all of that stuff going on in the background from The Big Short, and all that stuff that nobody even knew in the banking industry. And then suddenly banks were flooded with people who needed to get out of their mortgages. They never anticipated it. They never had any contingency plan to deal with it. And at least we can say they're much better able to handle that now.
Correct. And so that's the sellers. Sellers, there's a lot of options out there. So it's not as all lost, not all is lost. And it's very important to, if you think that things are getting tight or you're worried, give us a call. We are happy to anybody evaluation on their homes. We are happy to provide, even if it doesn't end up for selling it. If you guys, I am happy to help anybody try to save their house too. So
and
please,
we can let you know, like this is where the market is, which is really important information so that you have an idea what your choices are. Things are selling really fast right now and really well. So chances are, if you decided to go that route, you could be out from under it very, very quickly. We can also let you know what you're going to walk away with in that situation. So you have an idea of not only your equity position, but your ability to, move on to something else.
Yes. And so that's probably what I'd have to say are the biggest takeaways for sellers. Ruth, what are some points for buyers?
So we're starting to get a lot of inquiries from buyers looking for short sales and foreclosures, or inquiries about they'll see on the Big Z, now our competing broker. But they'll see that something says it's a pre-foreclosure, and they think that means this is the beginning and you have a chance to get in and get a deal. That's exactly the opposite of what it means. It actually means nothing. It means that person probably missed a mortgage payment, maybe more, and a couple of websites have taken it upon themselves to tell the world and all of their neighbors that they're struggling. They may well be in a perfectly fine position to recoup and get out of it and move forward with their lives. So they don't need anyone knocking on their door, asking if they would like to sell their house because you read about their personal financial information online. So those are not for sale. They might be someday, and we can keep an eye on it if you think it's a great house, but they're not for sale now. They may come on the market either as a short sale or a foreclosure, or again, it might be someone who's in a good enough equity position to recover and sell at a regular sale price. We can watch that for you, but we can't really do anything about their unavailability. The next step is a short sale. So someone has found themselves in a position where they owe more money than their house is worth. Now, as Danielle pointed out, we're not seeing a lot of that now. Those loans where you only needed a pulse and you never needed to pay interest, right, don't really exist and haven't for many years. So most people are not starting out in that kind of a position. And people are not allowed to get home equity loans for 110% of the value of their house. So all of the things that put so many people in that underwater position don't exist. And the market in most places has been appreciating pretty steadily. So that's the other thing that happened. There were places where people may not have taken a risky loan to begin with, but because of what happened in the greater market, it brought their values down so low that they were underwater. None of those things are happening now. We don't really anticipate them happening, but we, of course, again, as Danielle said, the disclaimer, our crystal ball is broken. So the next step is possible short sales. We might see a few of those. They are difficult from a buyer standpoint. You might get a pretty good price on it, but that bank is going to want market value. The process for buying a short sale is still very, very difficult. Banks don't like them and they don't want to encourage them. So they make it a lot harder, I think, than most people would like it to be. You're going to go in and you're going to make an offer based on where we think the value of that property is, not a low ball. It's just not going to work. You're not going to come in $30,000 under the list price. That list price already might be too low. We don't know. You're going to negotiate and reach a deal with the seller. You're going to have an executed contract. You're going to do your due diligence, your inspections. You're going to pay money for all of this stuff. And then you're going to wait. And by the way, most of the time the bank is not going to make any repairs. So that inspection is just for your own information. Then you're going to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And the bank's going to come back and they might accept the offer and they might counter and they might have a very different idea of the value.
And part of that is, I just want to point out, because when you think about where our market was 6 months ago and where it is today, the price that you might have offered was valid. This was something that happened to me personally. We put in an offer and it was a great offer. It was list price and it was what the market was. 4 or 5 months later, when the bank finally got back to us, they wanted higher because now the value of the house went up.
Yeah.
So that happened.
Yeah. And that's impossible, again, to even have any idea of. So you're sitting around waiting and counting on what you think is a contract on a house, and it's not yet. Mm-hmm. I had a situation where the bank came back and wanted $1,000 more after 5 months of waiting. And I'll tell you, you really have to have a lot of patience in the temperament for this, because my client did not. And he said some things that I can't say on Facebook, will ban us. But he was really, really angry, and for that reason did not go through with the purchase. So you need to know what you're getting into and be really flexible and really patient. And you're still not likely to get what you might be considering a deal. It is going to go for market value. So you need to know all those things up front. If it's the perfect house, then by all means, set things up, make sure that you've got flexibility in how long you're staying where you're staying. This is not something you can do with a real estate contingency or anything that locks you into a timeline. But if you don't have that and you're patient and flexible, it can be, it can get you the house you're looking for, especially in today's market with such low inventory. That might be perfect for you. Again, your realtor is the one who that means us. Whenever I say your realtor, I really mean us. Has all the information about your personal situation and whether it's a good idea for you or not. By the way, one of the best things is if you see a short sale that went under contract and then comes back on the market, most likely that buyer got impatient, right? I mean, that's almost always what happens. They're not able to stick with it. Whether they didn't have the right expectations set from the beginning or changed later, I don't know. But that happens pretty regularly, and it's awful for sellers, but it can be really good for the next buyer in line because they've already been through all of the things that are so time consuming. And they often have an approved price. So they'll come back on the market at what the bank said yes to. And by the way, the bank doesn't have to, the bank gets takebacks on anything. Yeah. Just if you're thinking about ever getting into a negotiation with with a bank, imagine, this is what I tell all my clients, imagine there's a brick wall in front of you and you're talking to it. That's what it's like negotiating with a bank. So the bank gets to change its mind, even if it has already accepted an offer. But most of the time, they're going to come in pretty close to that. So I have had short sales that got done really quickly when that was the second prospective buyer.
Mm-hmm.
The bank spends a lot of time making people prove to them that it can't be sold for more money.
Correct. Yep.
So then the other thing is foreclosures. So we get buyers calling and asking, are there any foreclosures for sale? And what they mean by that is there something I can get a great deal on? The short answer to that question is no. We're not in a market where a buyer gets a deal. And foreclosures are selling just as quickly as any other house. Foreclosures vary in condition. So you might have a foreclosure where it's Fannie Mae typically fixes it up. Is that the one?
Yeah.
So depending on who.
That's kind of across the board these days. I mean, that's, again, another thing that they learned from 2008, 2009 is that they were just throwing things back up, rock bottom prices. And then they eventually got the ability to, because they were a bank, they're not into owning houses. So they just went, get it off our books, get it off our books.
And so many people were not able to buy them in that condition because you need to be approved to buy a house you can live in. If it doesn't have a kitchen, your lender's not going to say that you can buy it.
Right.
Or if you don't have $50,000 in the bank to put in, new flooring and bathrooms, you can't buy it. Right. So it might look like a deal, but in reality, it's got some pretty hefty costs involved. So there are still some of those. And then there are the others that they go in and they paint, they fix anything that needs to be fixed, and they put in appliances and they put in new carpeting. It's not going to be the best carpeting that you've ever put your toes on in your life, but
it's moving ready and something that you can get financed for.
Exactly. And you can live in for a while. And if you want to change out the carpeting in a couple of years, you're going to be in a position to do that. And it's probably going to need it. But those are a good opportunity, but they are not a deal. They're not going to be priced lower than list price. And again, remember the brick wall. You do not go to buy a foreclosed property and say, I'll give you $50 for it. Because they're not even going to look at your offer, much less counter. They'll just say no.
I already tried that at the sheriff's sale.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing. If it's got as far as a foreclosure, most of these, even if they are distressed, are getting sold at sheriff sales because there is such low inventory and people are all, the investors are looking for a deal. So there's, not even probably much of a chance that it's going to get to foreclosure. But when it does.
There's a great question, Danielle. Can somebody just go to the sheriff's sale and buy these?
Well, you have to have cash and kind of know what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing. You don't get a chance to see the property. So it's sight unseen. You are taking a gamble regardless. And you got to, kind of know what's going on beforehand. So that's a whole nother category of.
Cash does not mean you have a mortgage and they give you cash. Cash means cash. Cash means you have that much money in the bank that you can go to the ATM and take out and put in your pocket and bring to the sheriff's sale. It's cash. And as you mentioned, no opportunity to do any inspections. You might buy one of these houses and find that the former owner was so angry they put concrete down the toilet.
Mm-hmm. And then put the water on so it all flooded.
Yeah.
A nice one too.
Yeah. So flooded and full of mold and everything else. So yes, you can go to the sheriff's sale and bid on properties if you have cash and if you're willing to take those risks, but probably not.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone really right now, any buyer who's looking for a great deal, they are not, that's not going to happen. We can get you a great house for a good price, but if you're looking to get somebody 10, 20% off of their list price, unless it's crazy overpriced, it's not going to happen.
Nope.
So when we go shopping and you've got your pre-approval, we're pretty much going to look up to the top of that pre-approval and no farther.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
So now we are short sale and foreclosure experts, says
resources. Officially, SFRs, we are resources. So come use us. We like to be resourceful.
Yeah. So most especially if you're in a situation where you either have trouble paying your mortgage or you think you're going to, and you think that selling your house might be a good answer, we can help you figure that out. As Danielle said, there's no obligation. We come, we help you. If we help you make the decision that we can't help you, then we did our job. That's what we want to do. If you are on the buy side, the bad news is we don't see a whole lot of deals flooding the market in the near future. The good news is you can feel pretty confident going shopping now to find the right home for yourself or the people that you live with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And thanks, Kathy, for your comments. People do need to hear these options. I think it's really important. One of the hardest things ever to do is get information to the people who need it. So any way we can help do that, we're happy to do. All right.
Thank you
all very much. I'm not allowed to wave. I'm going to say that. Can I pull my ear like Carol next?
You gotta get your own thing.